Welcome to this webinar on automating the enterprise, and we're going to focus on event-driven workflows. So we know there's many applications across your organization and different data sets, and we're going to talk about how you can build real-time or event-driven workflows to do this. So so my name's Don Murray. I'm one of the founders of SAFE, and I get the great privilege of working with Rylan and Nathan every day on a product that we're all really passionate about and excited about, not only what we've created, but what we have yet to create. So with that, why don't you introduce yourself? And we'll go left to right on my screen. So Nathan, you go first.
Awesome, thanks Don. Yeah, so I'm Nathan Hildebrand, and I'm a relatively new product manager at SAFE. Started about 2 months ago. And yeah, really excited to start working on the product for Fme Server, and I'm focusing on kind of the authoring side, automations, and everything that Fme authors work with in Fme Server.
Nice. And how long had you worked with Server before you were a product manager?
Oh yeah, so I was on the experts team for about three and a half years.
Yeah.
So I got my hands dirty with Server.
Absolutely. And then the next one is Rylan, and he leads the whole product for Fme Server.
Hi everyone, I'm Rylan Masjak, and Don's right. I'm also part of that Fme Server product management team. And similar to Nathan, I actually spent some time as an expert on the customer success team for Fme Server as well. So yeah, my hands are real dirty by the time I moved up into the product role.
Yeah. No, good. So with that, we will get started, and we're going to turn off our webcams because we know some of you out there have limited bandwidth, and so we'll do that. But we'll turn them on at the end again when we go through questions. So okay. So excellent. Okay. So let's have a quick look at the agenda here. Yeah. So first, we're gonna just lay the groundwork, talking about what is event data, give some examples, and then we're gonna look at some of the challenges. And then we're going to talk about the way we process event data in our platform, which is Fme Server Automations. And we'll really address 3 new features. So in some sense, you can think of this as a deep dive into some of the new functionality of Fme Server 2021, which shipped in March. And then we'll have some Q&A. So yeah.
You know what, Don? We forgot to introduce Holly, who's going to be back in Q&A today.
Turned her webcam off. That's why. Yes. So in the back we have one of our premier Fme Server experts, who we can't do a server webinar without Holly. So Holly's in the back there, and she's going to be answering your questions. And so thanks Holly for coming and joining us early in the morning. And it wouldn't be an Fme Server webinar without you. Yeah, so first of all, what is event data? Well, as far as we're concerned in this webinar, it's real-time data that's generated from applications or sensors or various sources that's delivered for immediate processing. So it might be an application where you enter a work order in one application, and then you want that, and that's going to trigger an event that's going to cause other systems to be updated. Or it could be a sensor that generates an alarm, say a fire alarm, or overheating alarm, or things like that. So that's what event data is. And there's 2 types of real-time data that we support. With event data, we talk about it as low velocity, and by low velocity we mean it's generated periodically, with each event spaced by seconds or minutes or more, or just periodic. Whereas the other type of real-time data we refer to as stream data. And this is any velocity real-time data, and this may be generated at a very high rate. So we have some customers who are using the Fme Server platform, and they're generating hundreds of thousands of events a second. And so we are not going to cover the stream data in this webinar, but we just finished a webinar series last week. There was 2 webinars. So if you want to learn more about how we also address the real-time stream data, then the link is there. And if you go to our webinar series, you'll find it as a pre-recorded webinar. But today we're focusing on event data. And the great thing about Fme is it's easy to move from one to the other. Maybe you start with some real-time data feed, and maybe at first you think the data is going to come really fast and it comes slow, or vice versa, and you can easily move back and forth as it's built on exactly the same architecture. So there are other event-based systems out there. There's some, here's just a sample. There's many of these if you go online and start looking. Some of the more popular ones, if this, then that. And these taglines I took from their website. Theirs is connect your apps and devices in new and remarkable ways, make the things you love more powerful. Monday.com, they also have an automation framework, and theirs is automate the repetitive work in seconds so you can avoid human error and focus on what matters. And the third one, Zapier, connect your apps to automate repetitive tasks so you can focus on other work. And all those things also apply to what we're going to talk about today. And of course, there's many other systems out there. This was just a sample of some of the more popular ones. Yeah, so Fme Server Automations, the goal there is to deliver automation to the entire enterprise. So while those other ones connect generally web services, Gmail, Slack, and hundreds and hundreds of those sorts of things, Fme Server Automations is focusing on that, but also all the on-premise or the entire enterprise. So you might have on-premise applications like databases. You might even have formats that arrive. So an event might be a CAD file appears in an S3 bucket, and so you want to process that. Cloud-based applications, of course, we can connect to any cloud-based application with REST APIs or other APIs. But of course, also we can connect to legacy systems that have no API. So that's really what sets Fme Server apart, is being able to really dive inside the data and extract information, sync up with other systems. So you might need to enrich an event message that comes along, and that's the difference between those lighter weight systems and Fme Server. So yeah, so for those who are new to our webinars, our mission at SAFE is really simple, and it's to help you maximize the value of data. And so data is scattered all over, and the more your data is flowing or the more data is used, the more value you're getting from it. And with automations, we're able to use that data in new ways, also connect applications together. What comes out of applications when, for example, somebody enters a work order, it's data. We can take that data and move it to where it needs to be to reduce human repetitive tasks. And this is what the platform looks like. We have the Fme desktop, which is where we author these really data integration tasks. This is where you can dive deep inside any file. Could be an XML file, could be a CAD file, could be LiDAR, could be, an Excel spreadsheet, could be any, could be Parquet, could be anything. And if you need to dive inside there as part of your enterprise integration or your event-based workflow, Fme desktop is where you would author that really fine-grained, detailed type of information. Fme Server is where then you take those flows and now you can connect them together in wild and wonderful ways, introducing things like parallelism that you don't even have to think about. The platform just figures out where it can do parallelism and makes that happen. And again, without writing any code in either of those two. So our platform truly is a no-code platform. Fme Cloud is simply Fme Server hosted on AWS. And then we have other cloud offerings in various marketplaces like Azure and Google. And we have clients running Fme Server on virtually any cloud. So whether it be DigitalOcean, Alibaba, IBM, you name it, customers have installed Fme Server on those. And last but not least is the mobile applications, and those really our client of Fme Server enables Fme Server to deliver data to mobile devices for your workers in the field or just scattered around your enterprise.
All right. Thank you for setting the stage perfectly there, Don. So how would your workday change if even your most complex tasks were automated? I'm thinking about that right now, and I probably couldn't have automated my slides for this webinar, but I can tell you that I'm automating some of my work today, and some of those automations were running yesterday. So why bother automating anything? Well, it's all about that time you get back. Automating a few tasks yesterday and the day before gave me time to focus on this webinar. There are great animations and charts out there to help illustrate how much time you can save by automating a repetitive task. And the narrative is all the same. It's all about giving you more time to think about difficult problems and knowledge work, giving you more time to do things that we aren't able to automate yet. Lots of tools out there. Don mentioned a few of them. Fme is powerful because it focuses on that spatial. And when I say automating in this context, by the way, I mean both scheduled automations and also automating the event data processing. So we need a tool that isn't going to flop. I love this line here. Computers are great at doing what they are told to do. Failure is going to happen. It's really important that the tools we use to automate can give us something, some kind of window inside to monitor what's happening. And when things go wrong, it better have some options for us. So when things go wrong, and they do, we can take action. It's something to plan for, something to expect. Hopefully my workflow doesn't fail all the time, but spoiler, it does fail sometimes. So I can make sure there are exit paths. You know, I hear this term sometimes, fail gracefully. That's kind of what I'm trying to explain here. How can we mitigate the impact of a failed automation? We can generate notifications, let someone know it failed. Maybe it will fail again soon. Let them know to take action. We can create a secondary workflow. Maybe I couldn't deliver what you asked for, but I could fall back to the last data request or provide some summary information. Really, it could be quite a few different things. And lastly, the ability to configure your workflow so that it tries again. It could just be a network blip, temporary. And compounding with failure is a scenario when things are still running, things are still successful, but they're taking too long. When you're processing event data, you expect that to go as fast as the data comes in. If you have event-based data, sure, maybe you're on the order of seconds to minutes, but when you're talking about streaming data, that could be hundreds or thousands of features coming in, and you want your system to be churning along. So you need to keep all of your automations running as well. And if you have limited resources, how do you manage that? You need a tool that can provide some insights and some options. What tool do I use? Well, of course, Fme Server Automations. But I'm not joking around when I say that I rely on Fme Server to automate some of my tasks. And you know, that extends even outside of work. I've configured some simple automations to help my day-to-day tasks. For everyone out there, if you use automations in Fme Server today, tell Holly what you like about it. And if you don't, tell us why not. You can use the chat panel in GoToMeeting to send any questions or comments. So let's get into what Fme Server Automations are. First off, why did we build automations as a feature in Fme Server? We've had the ability to create these automated event-based workflows for quite a long time. But over the years, it really started to gain popularity, and we needed to modernize the solution. Does anyone remember Fme Server notifications, the publications, subscriptions? Some of us are lucky to be starting with Fme Server Automations first. It allows you to create workflows in a canvas. It makes it easy to visualize your workflow. You can have multiple events in the same workflow, and you can monitor the health of what's going on. Huge improvements over the notifications feature. And for all of those who responded that you don't use it, or that you're running an older version of Fme Server, let me give you a quick tour. If you have any questions, be sure to send them to Holly. So I'll show you some of the basics of Fme Server Automation, and then I'll let Nathan show you what we're excited about in Fme Server 2021. So here I have Fme Server 2021 web interface. You'll notice we have this nice cool blue feature, updated the UI a little bit, made it a little bit more crisp. Automations is located here on the left menu, right near the top. So let's dive in, let's build an automation. If you haven't used automations before, you might see this Get Started tab, but I'm just going to dive in. So we start our canvas with a trigger, and we can also have guides to show you kind of the flow of an automation. So it's all the same pattern. You have a trigger, and then you have an action. So let's take a look at some of the options I have for triggers. We can have Amazon S3 notifications or SNS, SQS. These are things that can drive my workflow. If there's any directories, modified, Dropbox files added. We can even configure Fme Server to receive email. So maybe I'll just choose to watch a directory. You might imagine that I have a GIS system, and maybe I have some contractors that are submitting updates to the buildings, CAD drawings, BIM files. They drop them in a directory, and then I have set up a process to automate the integration into my GIS. So I can come in here, I'm going to select just a folder. So anything that comes in for me is going to trigger my automation workflow. Once I define my trigger, I'll hit apply to save it. Then I can go on to work on my next action here. So we can simply run a workspace, or we can do any sort of external action. So we also have this handy little side menu here, this quick menu. So if you don't have the guides turned on, you can always use the side menu to just click and drag in any item there, connect them up. And then similar to all the triggers, we have a variety of different protocols and services that we can connect to. So whether you're going to make a general HTTP request, you can notify an Amazon or an Azure topic, send a message to a WebSocket channel, even send an email. So once you've configured your email here, I'm actually just going to disable this component. Give it a name. We'll call this My Automation. And then we save it. And then once you're done there, then you just hit start and you're off to the races. So you see that your automation is running. That's great. So I also mentioned we were able to monitor things, right? Under the menu here, we're able to see all of the triggered jobs. That's all the Fme workspaces. So all the times my demo workspace would have run in response to a new file being added to that directory. It's just a quick view here of all those jobs that would have run. We can also view the log file for the entire automation. So just in case there's any connectivity issues with some of the actions or issues creating components, you'll be able to see that information here if you need to troubleshoot. But we also provide more of an overview for automations. You can see I have all these automations here. This is my sandbox environment. This is an Fme Server instance I've installed on Mac OS using Docker. And you can see for the automations I have running, we'll see if there are any warnings or errors in the log file. So if you're an administrator, you can come to this view for a quick overview of what's going on. Or you can also view it as a grid so that if you have in your visually what you expect is in that automation, you can say, okay, where's that automation I had? Yeah, that's the one that looks like this. And then we can go into it and continue editing from there. So yeah, that's all I wanted to show you. Just a quick little preview there of Fme Server Automations, a little overview if you aren't familiar with them. But now I will be passing it over to Nathan, and he is going to tell you about some of the new features we have in Fme Server 2021.
Awesome, thanks, Rylan. Let me just get my screen going here. Alrighty, thanks. So yeah, this is Nathan talking here. And so Don and Rylan did a great job of highlighting the value of automations, I think, for the enterprise and doing a great intro for it. And now I'm going to talk a bit more about the details of 3 new features for automations and show you how they can help you overcome integration challenges. So let's start with guaranteed delivery. Every time I talk about guaranteed delivery, I can't help but think about how much my online ordering increased over the last year. Amazingly, nothing got lost in the mail. Well, nobody wants their package lost in the mail. Nobody wants their data lost in a failed process either. So the real problem we wanted to solve with this new feature is really unnecessary job failure. Whether your integration is simple or complex, chances are you'll have some unpredictability built in. Maybe it's a web service or a database that's providing a crucial piece of the puzzle. And as always, when reaching out to external systems, you can sometimes be at the mercy of a network or the other server. if a service is temporarily unavailable, or maybe it times out, or a database is overloaded, or there's a hiccup in network connectivity, a workflow can fail completely if there's no catch in place. And this means your data is not delivered, and often you'll need to do some manual troubleshooting to determine what the actual issue is. So our goal is to try to guarantee as much as possible our crucial data process and data delivery. And our most common obstacles are often networks and external systems outside of our control. The solution is to set up guaranteed delivery for our automations with automated retries, which allow these kinds of intermittent failures to be gracefully retried without any oversight. The result is peace of mind and more robust automations that just work. All right, so let me show you a quick demo just of what automated retries look like in Fme Server Automations. So I've got an automation here that runs on a schedule, pulls cell data from a web service, splits the result up for processing, and finally publishes a data product up to S3. Problem is that I keep getting complaints that the data in S3 is not up to date. I did check on the automation and noticed that it was successful most of the time, but it was failing every so often. Since the processing workspaces are simple, these two here, I suspected right away that it was the web request that was causing the problem. I was able to narrow down the issue to intermittent kind of network problems. So getting data from this web service was the real problem. And this is a perfect scenario for automated retries. So I went ahead and set them up on this web request action. So if I open the parameters for this web request, you'll notice that over here, there's just a new tab called retry. And if I untick these, no retry is set on this action. But I actually went ahead and set up custom retry settings so I can take advantage of all the different settings in here for retries. And I just set it up to retry this workspace action 3 times and to wait 2 seconds between each retry to try to overcome those intermittent network issues. These 2 parameters down here are all about kind of lengthening and randomizing the kind of time interval between all of these retries. So I've got a factor of 2 here so that each time my workspace retries, it'll wait a little bit longer. And I could have set a randomization factor too to give this interval a little bit of a random characteristic. And then I can also set a maximum. If I don't want to fool around with those, I can also just set a default of 5 attempts for this retry. Just for peace of mind, I actually went ahead and set a retry on my notifications for this workflow as well. And I just set the default settings for both my email notification and my S3 publishing. If I go look at the log for this automation, I'll notice that most of the time it is actually successful. But if I filter warnings in this log just for a second, I can take a look at all the times that this job failed due to network connectivity issues and the number of times it was submitted. And you'll notice here too that typically 1 retry was enough to get the job done. Awesome. So that's guaranteed delivery. So the key takeaway here is that automations really have your back. Intermittent failures used to completely halt integrations, but now you can relax knowing that Fme Server will automatically retry failed processes so you don't have to. And if you're looking for more info on guaranteed delivery, by the way, you can learn even more about it in an article on our Knowledge Center. A little shameless plug there, I authored it. Next up, I'll talk about the manual trigger in automations, which is really opening up a lot of new possibilities for how you can run automations. So I really want to highlight this idea of flexibility here for the manual trigger. Probably the first thing we think of when we think of automations is event-driven workflows that automatically respond to changes in our systems. This could be files uploaded to a directory, like Rylan pointed out. It could be a schedule trigger, or even incoming data from another system or application, as Don pointed out. These are all great, and we can really just set them and forget them, and they'll do their thing in the background. But sometimes organizations also need on-demand integrations. So what if I have an automation and want to orchestrate my sort of complex workflow with a visual builder, but I want to also run it on demand? And what if I want to run it with slightly different input parameters depending on the data that I need? And what if I also want to share this workflow with others so that they can do the same thing and run it on demand to meet their needs? If you look at the common use cases for on-demand automations on the slide here, you'll notice just at the bottom, I also added authoring and troubleshooting. This is because kind of as a side effect of having this new manual trigger type in automations is that it turns out it also makes testing and troubleshooting automations a lot easier. It gives authors the capability to test automations on demand with test data and even just run specific pieces of automations to see how they behave individually. I won't cover this whole story here in detail, but I just wanted to highlight this customer story from PowerLink and that they kind of expressed a need for this kind of flexibility. So PowerLink has created a powerful set of automated data-driven workflows to manage emergency situations, especially around their power infrastructure. They use Fme to monitor for new data coming in around fire events and distribute notifications and reports to key stakeholders. Having this system entirely automated has saved emergency staff tons of time handling events and getting key information into the right hands. But sometimes you might not want to just wait for that new data coming in. If someone requests a report or some information, you might want to just run a workflow like this on demand to make sure the data gets where it needs to on time. So the goal here is to run a set of connected jobs and notifications on demand with the click of a button, because sometimes a passive automation isn't enough. This is all fine if you pack everything into a single Fme workspace, say, but as workspaces become more specialized and integrations get more complex, we need to start chaining these processes using automations, and we need flexibility. This is really where the manual trigger comes in, which allows you to keep using automations to build your integrations, allows you to pass in data at runtime and kick off everything with a click of a button. All right, let me just dive over to my automations to show you a manual trigger workflow. So here I've got an automation that aggregates data from 2 databases and validates the result before writing out a new data set. This is something that I want to run on demand, and I want to get slightly different data from the database every time. I want to also point out that this workflow is really well suited to automations in particular, because I have a mix of jobs running in parallel and in sequence, and my downstream processes rely on the results of the upstream ones. To be able to run this on demand with a user input database query, I've set up a manual trigger. In the manual trigger, I've set up a key, which is going to hold my where clause for my database. That's going to allow me to get just the specific data that I want. In my speedy data process, I've set up a parameter to ingest this key or use this key with the where clause in the workspace to query the database. I'll just copy this where clause here. And if I start the automation, I've got this handy trigger button right here next to this, the start and stop button that's sort of linked up to this manual trigger. And if I trigger, I can actually send in my where clause right here with this prompt for a message in JSON. And I can click OK. and my automation will run. I ran this earlier, and just to point out from the job log for that speedy data workspace that my where clause made it into the workspace, and it's going to tell my database what data I want.
I just want to jump in here for a second, Nathan. One thing I want to point out with the automations that Nathan has been showing is he's making great use of bookmarks and annotations. So those are features that we took inspiration from Fme Workbench. We know that our customers love to have their workflows organized. So when possible, we can put in these bookmarks, these annotations, and they're available also on the quick menu in automations. Thanks, Nathan.
Awesome, thanks Rylan for that, pointing that out. So the key takeaway here, again, is flexibility for this manual trigger. Automations already gives you the power to create all these event-driven workflows, but with a manual trigger, you can use the same tools to create on-demand workflows as well. Finally, if you want to learn even more about the manual trigger, we've got a great article published on our community, which will tell you all about it. And I don't want to give too much away, but we are starting to look at how the manual trigger can also be expanded for the future of Fme Server to enable automations to be run on demand by, say, anyone in your organization without necessarily needing to know how to build and use automations. So the last feature I'll highlight today is automations job statistics, which will help you understand how your automations perform and impact the flow of processes on your Fme server. Hopefully you've seen by now that automations can help you orchestrate powerful workspaces to sometimes run in pretty complex ways. But you might be curious how these automations fit into all the other things running on your server. After all, Fme Server does run on some kind of metal somewhere in the world, and the demand for everyone taking advantage of it needs to be balanced. Some of the most common problems are maximizing busy and slow times, and for this we need to know when the demand is high, how long high demand workflows take, and how much processing or CPU they actually eat up. This ties in with job queuing as well, because if we can categorize and separate jobs based on how they actually perform, we can dedicate the appropriate resources to them using something like queues. And how do we know where the overall pain points are, or if we need to scale our Fme server up without insights into how things are running? I'll address some of these issues here for automations specifically, but if you want to learn more about how you can balance your entire Fme server using job statistics, Don and Rylan actually just did a great webinar on job control and Fme server at scale, so definitely check that one out. So the goal with automations job statistics is all about balancing demand and maximizing your Fme server. To do this, we need hard data about how our automations are running. We looked at this and came up with a solution to make job statistics available directly in automations, specifically for automations jobs, which means you can plan your automations and the rest of your Fme server to maximize capacity and performance. So what does this look like in Fme server? I'm going to jump back to that first automation that I showed, and I ran it for quite some time this morning, and I built up some job statistics on each of these processes. So if I click on one of these processes, like the web request, I can just go to this job statistics tab, and all the information I see here is specific to this job running inside this automation. And you can see it ran 106 times this morning, and I can see an average of the CPU usage for all those runs, as well as actual time usage of the CPU, and the full runtime of the entire workspace process as well, and memory usage too. And I have this for each of my other workspaces in this automation as well. So super handy to have this right in automations. You can get a quick snapshot of what's actually going on and how the performance is. So just to highlight the key takeaway here, I think it's all about insight. So with job statistics built right into automations there, you can keep building automations with a clear picture of how they actually impact your Fme server. All right, that's it for me, and I think I'm handing it back to Don here to take us home.
Yeah, so thanks Nathan, and thanks Rylan for a great overview of what automations are, and also highlighting the challenges and the new functionality we've added to automations that help address those challenges, from talking to failed systems to being able to figure out where your workflows are, and also the parallel workflow that Nathan showed was are really key, and look forward to more even more complex control over that in the time forward. So yeah. Yeah, so we hope that in this webinar you've seen how you can use automations to automate the entire enterprise. The key thing with our automation solution, our event-driven workflows, is that all the different data sources, so there's over 500 that Fme supports, can be accessed. So you might have an event, you might want to connect with ArcGIS Online, grab some data to enrich that event, or your Oracle database, or your PostGIS database, or connect to an Excel spreadsheet. All these sorts of things can be part of what you do when one of these events happens. So if you want to give it a go for yourself, we do have free trials available, and so you just go to safe.com/trial. You can try the entire platform, and while you do, make sure you reach out to us with any questions, and we're really happy to help you reach success. Yep, so this is how you get started. So you can download a free trial of Fme 2021, or if you already have it, you could upgrade, and then you can start creating automations to respond to a chosen event trigger. The manual trigger, as Nathan alluded to, sometimes is really great for learning and building the automations. It's also useful in production, but from a development standpoint, it can really save you a lot of time. And then once you've built your first simple automation, then of course, I always believe in start with something simple, and then from there you can take what you learned on that and grow to more complex tasks. We have some customers out there that have thousands of these automations, so yeah. And with that, yeah, we just want to thank everybody for attending, and I want to also thank the team at SAFE, Rylan and Nathan, for putting together, just great demos and a great slide deck that really highlighted, in a very clear form what automations are all about and some of the capabilities. And last but not least, Steph, who just makes all these webinars happen and makes sure that it all looks really, really great. And yeah, and with that, don't forget to follow us on social media, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram, and you'll find all about what's going on at SAFE. On Instagram, we have this wonderful thing called What's Up Wednesdays, that every Wednesday, and today's Wednesday, we highlight the things that have happened at SAFE in the last week. So any closing words, Nathan and Rylan?
No, I think that's good. I believe we probably have some time for some Q&A.
Yeah.
Stephanie, are there any interesting questions that we might care to answer live?
There are. I know, yeah, Holly's been busy behind the scenes answering quite a few of them that have come in. So Holly, are there any that jumped out to you that you want to highlight?
Yeah, I wanted to mention a couple of people asked about integrating server apps or Data Express with the manual trigger. And Nathan, I know you mentioned that there is work in progress to try and integrate these two better. But I wanted to also mention that there is a REST API endpoint for the manual trigger. I don't know if you wanted to talk about that at all and how we could maybe use that to, and the HTTP caller to kickstart those processes.
Yeah, that's a great point, and something that I left out when I was talking about the manual trigger. But yeah, the REST API is another way you can leverage that on-demand way to run automations. And I believe you can send in data as well to be passed in, as you saw that JSON prompt come up when I triggered the automation. So that's another way you can run those on demand. And yeah, we're seriously taking a look at how we can improve this manual trigger and sort of democratize automations as well at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's always something in the works, right? There's always more to come. That's the beauty of software, and that's what I think is so exciting about it. Yeah. I love that question. I saw a few of them. There's multiple people that are asking about that, and I think we have something great kind of in store, kind of getting put together, ready to bake in that oven.
Yeah, and for sure, if you're just new to Fme Server, really do reach out to us. One of the things we talk about a lot at SAFE is the restaurant model and the fact that to be successful, we focus on having a good product, but also amazing service. So it's as close as live chat. We also have an amazing community with users around the world. And there's some of the communities are even in the local language. So if you're not a native English speaker, there's groups out there that are in different languages and things like that. So the community is fantastic. Live chat is fantastic. Always ways to reach out to us. We recognize that when you're starting out anything, the first most important thing is that you have early success from which to build on. And so please do reach out to us, even if you just want to say, hey, I've just installed Fme Server. Here's what I kind of want to do. And then we can really help you and give you samples and things like that. So, yeah.
Awesome. What do you think, Holly? Is there any other ones that jumped out to you?
Not really. There's a few people that seem a bit confused between Fme Desktop and Fme Server. So definitely, if you want to reach out to us, we can arrange kind of a separate chat to go through what Fme Server is in more detail.
Awesome. That sounds good. We also, have a lot of great resources on the website, as Dawn mentioned as well, that should offer some clarity there. Or if you go back and watch the beginning of this webinar, we'll be sending out a replay. Dawn did talk about the differences a little bit between the platforms.
And there's great questions there about, knowledge articles and webinars perhaps that explain, there's these event keys and user-defined keys in automations. And do we have anything, Holly, or is that just a suggestion that is fantastic and we should build a custom?
So that's a brilliant suggestion. I'm fairly certain, Stephanie can probably confirm, that it's in our webinar backlog to do something on event keys and user keys within automations. And I think probably to have a knowledge article that ties in with that would be great.
Yeah, we could have a deep dive even just on the automations framework. And I I've used user keys and the event keys, and they are fantastic. They can save you and then if tied into that is global variables, and all these different things, and knowing how to use those can really allow you to share values across your automation and really take it to the next level. So great suggestion on that, Lynn. So thank you for that. Yeah, and that's just going back to that restaurant model thing. Please do let us know where we're missing either functionality or content that explains how to use it, because it's easy for us to miss something. It's this Fme platform's becoming bigger and bigger, and this just highlights one thing. And I can see that having used it, how it would be great to have some content on getting started using user keys and event keys in Fme automation. So thanks for that.
Totally. Get your orders in.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, well, I'll highlight this one comment we got earlier from Carl, who said, I love the new automation features in the current release. I just upgraded our DEV server over the past weekend, but can already see ways to improve reliability, scalability, and troubleshooting in ways that positively impact a user's experience. Well done.
Love it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carl.
Amazing.
Awesome. Okay, well, great job, everyone. I think what I can do is leave this running for another 5 minutes, and then if anyone wants to chat in some questions behind the scenes, we can answer them. And as Don mentioned earlier, if you find you go away after the webinar and you have questions, you can reach us on live chat at safe.com or on the FME community, which is safe.com/community. But yeah, with that, I will kind of close it down, but save out any links if you want in this next 5 minutes and get in some last questions.
Great. Thanks so much, Stephanie.
Yay. Thanks, team. I'll see you a little bit later today.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.